have to like get back to like doing stuff again, like actually like recording
Mm-hmm.
stuff.
Yeah, your
I
recording
finished I finished
reserves
everything.
are drying up.
It's not yeah, a little bit. Like
Mm-hmm.
I have quite a bit of stuff in the tank just in
Mm-hmm.
case. I try to like knock shit out so like no matter what happens, like if I get called away or something, or if I gotta like go do something, I got something in
Mm-hmm.
the tank just in case. I can just edit on like
Mm-hmm.
my MacBook if I just want to like sit in my chair and not do anything and just edit a video and get that shit done. God, that thing is such a fucking lifesaver for me some days. You have no idea. If I don't want to like sit at my desk for an hour and a half,
Mm-hmm.
pull my fucking MacBook out, bro. I knock that shit out so fucking fast. Holy shit.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah,
Cool.
I'm I gotta get to work on like Arise.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Mm-hmm.
I gotta start knocking that shit. I gotta like okay, so real talk. I stopped.
Mm-hmm.
So Final Fantasy X was something I was working
Mm-hmm.
on at one point, right? I was like actively working on it. But then I hit
Mm-hmm.
a point when I was gonna have to do like a fuck ton of off-screen work, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
prepping to like kill all the super bosses in the game. That was my plan. But that was gonna take me in a really long time to do, right? Like a
Mm-hmm.
concerted amount of effort. So I said, fuck it. I'll work on it in the background and I'll do something else front facing while I work on it. Well, spoiler alert, CD, I didn't. Spoiler alert, spoiler alert, I didn't work on it on the back end. It didn't get touched. And
The progress bar was here before, and oh,
the
would you look at that? It
uh,
hasn't moved.
yeah, the progress bar has not moved a goddamn inch since I started. So that's a problem that I'm now having to
Mm-hmm.
like cope with as I'm sitting here. I'm like, fuck, I'm gonna like have to like actually like get some work done now,
Mm-hmm.
aren't I? Shit.
You can thank past you.
I wouldn't think them. This wouldn't be a
Not in so many
situation.
words.
Yeah, I wouldn't be. I'd be like, damn, bro, you set me up to
Mm-hmm.
fail. The fuck? You got past me got me gassing myself up like I'm gonna be successful. Then I wake up and realize, oh shit, I'm behind. The fuck did you
Mm-hmm.
do? Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, for a rule of the day, don't gas yourself up unnecessarily because you will get the wrong idea, wake up one morning and realize you are behind. Bright side is, and this is a bright side. I do say this, all my
Mm-hmm.
progress is on Switch, so I could just take this shit with me and work from anywhere, which is like the greatest feeling in the
That's
world.
good.
Of like my progress is always with me. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
Downside
That's good.
is I have a lot of games on Switch I'm currently trying to
Mm-hmm.
like enjoy, so that's a problem. Gonna have to work on that one of these days, but I
Mm-hmm.
will. I will figure this out, CD. I won't say I always do, but I most times do.
Mm-hmm.
Most I'm a relatively smart guy. I can parse this out. I'll figure this out. I always do. I
You'll
hope.
find a way.
Yeah, I'll find a way or BS my way through it. It's one of the two. I'm bound to figure something out. All right, CD.
Mm-hmm.
It's all you, buddy. Bases are
Mm-hmm.
loaded. The crowd
Yeah.
is ready.
Speaking of problems you have to figure out. Yeah, and remember how I talked about that last epoch boss last time?
Oh, did you figure it
Yeah.
out? Oh.
Yep. I tried again. Only did a small variation in the skills I equipped, but something clicked and I managed to evade all the dangerous parts and come out on top on the next try.
Oh, don't you love it and hate it when that happens though? When like it doesn't there's no like explainable reason why you succeeded this time. Like
I mean,
you
it's relatively explainable because it's you really have to get used to the pattern.
Okay,
that the boss
it
has.
was pattern recognition.
Mm-hmm.
You just found your flow. What you're saying.
Yep.
You found your zen.
The
Yeah,
timing when I went where and when I did the attacks and all, and
yeah.
when I pulled back. Yeah,
My man,
that
he
was the
figured.
important part.
Yeah, my man, he found his flow. That's what happened. Good for you. Proud
Mm.
of you.
And the other big boss, I also beat that one. The one where our mutual friend had the problem with his mage that that boss has a dash attack. For
Mm.
him, that turns out to be a one-hit kill, and it's also
Mm.
homing. So
Mm.
yeah, quite bad. For me, I don't know what exactly it was. If it is the dodge if my dodge value was high enough, or if it's the armor or whatever. But I survived those dash attacks with no big of an issue, and the other attacks were mainly just avoiding them, seeing the pattern in it, and being and moving around enough and being quick about it, because some of the attacks, they could be a problem. There's one where it's essentially um, in a cone like this, and it's sort of like a white raise, I guess it is. The result of it is you get you get locked in place. Essentially, after a short bit, I think a second or at most 2 seconds, uh, some stone forms around you, and you get locked in place. And you have to wait a bit until that stone clears out, the rock clears out, and you can move again. Which can be an issue depending on what the next attack is gonna be.
Yeah, I'd say so.
So you have to be quick and have some traversal skill ready, like for the Falconeer. That my main one is the aerial assault for the Falcon, which essentially means my Falconeer jumps up to the Falcon and moves ahead a bit, and then jumps down for the attack, which is useful as an attack for this kind of avoidance. And yeah, I've continued there, and I am now at the part where I have essentially the end game stuff available, the monoliths, which are repeatable, not timed, but it's repeatable areas that you have to defeat enemies in, and I think it's counting. It's essentially dungeons where you have to beat enough enemies, and at the end you have to defeat a spawning boss. Which,
Mm.
yeah, the first one that I did was it's around level 58 in terms of the balancing. I'm at level 60 currently, and that was a decent challenge. Yeah, I'm gonna have a look at what the others are, and that's the segment that I have to clear out now first as the next point. It's not quite it's not post game, I think. It's essentially still part of the campaign, but not in the it isn't it's not marked as a main quest. Interestingly, it's essentially marked as a side quest, but yeah, that's the current progression there.
Mm-hmm. Well,
That's
shit.
pretty much been my week in terms of gaming.
Now, I don't like to just put everything on you
Mhm.
anytime we do stories on the show. That's
Mhm.
not really my bag. I usually try to attempt to understand what we're
Mhm.
talking about. But I'm going to quote
Mhm.
you very quickly on this cuz you made it
Mhm.
very clear when you put all this up, which was Gonna have to preface that it's an incomplete view on the matter in any case, cause fuck putting the time necessary into it. Which, woo, boy, that's woo.
Yeah.
Hearing that from you is always a lovely occasion. If I hear I'm not putting the kind of fucking effort into this shit if I don't have to.
Yeah, not with a story like this, because having a complete picture here, that would require a goddamn lot of amount of things to cover. And I'd have to be reading, I don't know how many things, watching podcasts that are I don't know how many hours, and some things are probably not even available online readily because that's behind the scenes stuff. So,
Well, CD, why don't you walk us through the fucking
mm-hmm.
nightmare horrorscape that you have forced yourself into attempting to understand, which is Sweet
Mm-hmm.
Baby Incorporated. CD has put in
Oh,
a considerable amount of effort into trying to understand this mess, so I'm gonna let him
mm-hmm.
handle
Yeah.
explaining a decent amount of this.
Mm-hmm. Because yeah, these recent times, we last time I think we already mentioned this, that people are talking about Sweet Baby Inc. and all that kind of stuff, and there's articles popping up all over the place. Everyone is trying to have their say on it, so I had a bit of a look around, and apparently, as close as I could figure, this started at around September 2023. Although, if depending on what you look at, you can very likely trace this back even further, because this is an offshoot of some other topic like the EGS stuff. That's the whole equity stuff for investments. But at around September last year, it pretty much culminated that some people that aren't fond of current AAA releases, or like some aspects of them at least, like there's Spider-Man 2, God of War Ragnarok, Alan Wake 2, and some others. Some people noticed, yeah, the credits and all. Um, there are people mentioned from a company called Sweet Baby Inc. And then at the time, Suicide Squad came out, and that game also had them involved, or rather, Suicide Squad came out a bit later. That was end of January. So, and in the meantime, people were still talking about this mainly, I guess, on Kiwi Farms and probably on some YouTube channels. It was simmering still. And then Suicide Squad came out. That didn't have a great reception. Let's call it that. Review scores weren't that great. And, well, people were showing around stuff about it, like scenes they didn't like, with how the characters were treated. We talked about this as well. We mentioned that. And the game also has some character blurbs in it, some character descriptions in their in some bios, which are apparently written by Lex Luthor. And although I'm not sure which Lex Luthor this is, because this didn't read like something the mainstream Lex Luthor would write. So maybe it's an alternate version of Lex, potentially. Which, well, most of the characters from the Justice League obviously get a pretty bad rap from him.
Yeah.
Which one would expect. But then there's also a very weird positive portrayal of the Amazon society where Wonder Woman is from. Like, this is a golden society that solved many problems like toxic masculinity. Okay. So, which reads kind of weird because I don't think the regular Lex Luthor would phrase it that way, but maybe it's some other Lex Luthor because it might be some multiverse stuff. DC has a lot of that.
Yeah. Okay. So a little weird, little off,
Mm-hmm.
little out of
Yeah.
character as far as we know Lex Luthor, but okay, nothing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but the game has a lot of problems even besides this, as we know. It's a live service game, which it's a premium game. It's also live service. Doesn't handle that really well. People don't really like it. Not many people are playing it
Right.
still. It was at most 13,000 according to Steam, which for a AAA game like this isn't really great.
No,
So
not
at
at
that
all.
point, what happened was there was a Steam curator created. Sweet Baby Ink Detected. It was apparently created by some Brazilian guy, which I never heard of before, but obviously nowadays he's in everyone's minds. And he made a list of games that Sweet Baby Inc. was involved in, mainly going by, I think, their own homepage and other stuff like Moby games or credits from the games or something from their Steam pages. Depends. It's written in the curator entries for each game, and well, he sets all of those to not recommended, which that in itself, okay. You can take that or leave it. There's also other curators like that recommend or do not recommend games on certain aspects, but we haven't had that with certain companies yet, I think. But then, some Sweet Baby Inc. employees claimed that this is harassment and called for the curator to be taken down, as well as the group, as well as the Steam page from this guy. So his own Steam profile, along with all his games and all. Yeah, they called for mass reporting and all that, which.
Oh, wait.
Mm,
So they're
mm-hmm.
they're claiming the curator was a form of her. Was he? What? I don't. I'm a little
I mean,
confused how you equate a curator
mm-hmm.
page to being harassed. I mean, maybe they could claim that because it exists, it caused them to get harassment. But even then, that seems a little bit of a
That's possible.
stretch.
Mm-hmm.
Seems a little bit of a
Yeah,
stretch.
the problem there is, I think, a list like this is, I'd say, fine, but obviously you shouldn't harass people as a result of it. So the harassment itself is the problem. Do not blame the list.
Yeah,
Effectively.
yeah. The list itself just seems silly to
Mm-hmm.
seem. The list just seems like a silly thing to have
Yeah.
done. I wouldn't necessarily know whether or
Mm-hmm.
not
Yeah,
you can
it's
blame it
yeah.
for harassment, but again, I don't know. So who
Mm-hmm.
knows? Maybe
Yeah,
maybe they could, maybe they couldn't.
we'll get to aspects of that as well later on. But essentially what happened was the curator got created. Uh, the Sweet Baby Inc. employees tried taking it down. What happened was people responded to that, reported one of the Twitter profiles from one of the guys. He went on private, he got temporarily suspended, and at the time, the curator was at around 8K followers, if I remember it correctly. So it wasn't that massive. But following that whole kerfuffle, that exploded pretty much, and it's grown to over 250K by now.
Oh
It's one
fuck.
of the biggest Steam curators at this point.
Oh fuck.
There's a few bigger ones, but yeah.
So
That's
what you're telling me is the Streisand
mhm.
effect is real, and
Absolutely.
they fucked around and found out about it. Is what happened.
Pretty much,
They
yeah.
didn't think the Streisand effect was real. Turns out that shit is fully real, 100%
Mhm.
real. Do not fuck with that. The second you try to
Yeah,
hide some shit, you are shining a giant fucking light on it.
effectively, yeah. Although I'm not sure how much hiding there is if the homepage of the company itself lists the projects, but hmm, that's neither here nor there. But the curator itself, now it definitely is more well known than it was before.
Okay.
And then over time, quite a few articles came out about this whole thing, mainly about how what Sweet Baby Inc. does, and that people don't know what they do or misunderstand what they do. And quite a few of them curiously bring up a old term, Gamergate,
Ah,
which people
yes.
apparently really can't seem to let go.
Ah, yes. My favorite straw
Yay.
man. Shit, dude. I'm surprised. I'm surprised that thing. I'm surprised there's any fucking straw left in that bitch. Poor fucker's been trotted out so many times over the years. God damn, he's how is he still standing up
Mm-hmm.
straight? They must be using a bunch of cardboard to stand this motherfucker up.
Yeah, especially after. I mean, this is. I don't know how many times they already were decrying kind of like a Gamergate 2, and well, they're still trying to get their wish in that regard, it seems.
Yeah, well,
mm-hmm.
don't stop believing, I suppose.
Yeah, and in terms of the timeline, at least, that pretty much brings us to today. It's the Sweet Baby Inc. company was involved in a few games. People talked about that. The curator was made. That whole thing blew up, and then the articles came out. That were the main things. And just a little bit about Sweet Baby Inc. They're a relatively small company, around 16, 18 employees. They're based in Vancouver, Canada, and they're used for consulting on character, story, narrative, stuff like that. They try to they advertise themselves as in terms of trying to make games more diverse, more inclusive, stuff like that. They try to do things like when a company hires them and and asks them, does this story make sense, or does this character make sense? Is it a accurate depiction of a certain minority, for example? Like what they did in Alan Wake 2 with one of the main characters. Uh, what's her name? Saga Anderson or something like that, I think. And because the developer is, well, Finland, from what I remember. I think it was.
Yeah, sounds about right.
Check. And just to make sure, I think it was Finland, but let me just quickly check. Yep, they're headquartered in Finland, and yeah, obviously they don't necessarily have the experience of having that many black people in the country, especially not African Americans. So,
Okay.
in that regard, it would make sense to have someone consult you on characters,
Yeah,
I'd say.
okay. Yeah, fair enough.
Mm-hmm. And they also, from what I've gathered, brought in to rewrite Goodbye Volcano High as an example, which was a game that's also a bit has been a bit around in terms of uh, been a bit mocked and all that.
Okay.
And hmm and this whole thing, what I've noticed is kind of like there's been kind of bad arguments all around.
Oh. Okay.
On the one hand, the influence of Sweet Baby Inc. seems kind of overstated because they're not really on any size of being able to enact a master plan in the industry to take over or diversify games more than the developers themselves would add.
Would already be doing anyways. Like
Yeah,
if they were gonna
exactly.
diversify, they were already going to
Mm-hmm.
do it. I mean, now that I know that
Mm-hmm.
like the company's only like what six, you said like 16 people
Yeah.
out in the middle of
Mm-hmm.
Vancouver, Canada. I kind of question the reach and scope
Mm.
this company could possibly have. I mean,
Yeah, they're currently just, well, they're the most public currently, that's for sure, especially after all this. And they've just, I think, partly had the misfortune of being associated with some high profile releases, especially in a relatively short amount of time.
yeah,
Like, as I said, Spider Man 2, Alan Wake 2, God of War Ragnarok, and Suicide Squad. So, yeah.
yeah, perfect storm of games to be involved in that would get you
Yeah.
noticed if you were going to be
Mm hmm.
involved with some high profile games.
Mm hmm. Yeah, and it was kind of a mix in terms of quality, because, of course, most of those have been relatively well received. Some had a bit of a troubled aspect in terms of inclusion, like with Spider-Man 2, with the whole Puerto Rican flag, which, well, if you if you hire people to check for stuff and that still gets missed, that's well, I
Not a great look. Not a great.
not really know because that either shows that the ones hired haven't been very thorough, or the people developing the game really did not pay that much attention themselves.
Yeah, they were
And
asleep at the wheel
really,
anyways.
they, yeah, and they weren't really all that in well, not invested in the whole diversity thing. So yes, yeah. God of War Ragnarok had other problems. Alan Wake 2, yeah, mostly seemed fine from what I remember. That one just hasn't really sold enough to make a profit yet, at least last I read, but maybe that's changed by now. And Suicide Squad, well, we know about Suicide Squad.
That was that was
That's
dead in the water. That was dead
mm,
in the water well
mm.
before it came out.
Yeah, that had a lot of issues. And so, on the one hand, the reaction to SBI has been a bit over the top, I think. But on the other hand, the reaction to the whole thing has also been a bit much. And some people seem to just be fanning the flames in the whole thing, rage baiting, and the articles themselves also kind of seem a bit, yeah, not really trying to calm the situation down. Let's put it like that.
Yeah, but I also, not to get like conspiratorial
Mm-hmm.
for a moment, not really my
Mm-hmm.
plan.
Sure.
But I don't think there's much incentive to calm the situation down for the people writing the articles. There's no incentive.
Yeah.
Like there's none.
Mm-hmm.
There's no incentive. You're not incentivized to calm things down. You're incentivized to create incendiary, I'm going to be honest with you, blog posts, because I don't consider most of these
Mm-hmm.
places actual news credible sites, but blog posts and,
Yeah.
get
Mm-hmm.
clicks and get people to make YouTube videos or dedicate parts of their stream to it. Like I don't really
Mm-hmm.
see the
True.
value here. So
Yeah. In an ideal world, yeah, that wouldn't be that wouldn't be required. But where we stand now, yeah, they definitely stand to win by getting as many clicks as possible for this whole thing.
yeah, the incentive here is clear. We want to
Mm-hmm.
because I'll be honest, this story, like honestly, the way with as much traction as this shit was getting on my homepage on YouTube,
Mm-hmm.
you would think this shit was serious. Like
Mm-hmm.
my YouTube homepage had video after video after video with Sweet Baby's
Mm-hmm.
logo on it, talking about
Yep.
this massive gaming scandal, and I'm like, oh shit, oh
Mm-hmm.
well. I mean, I'm not gonna watch your terrible fucking
Yeah.
video. I'm not gonna watch your terrible fucking video, but shit.
Mm-hmm.
Like, cause here's the thing,
Yeah.
right? Here's my
Mm-hmm.
mentality, like when it comes to like scandal, right? And I don't mean
Mm-hmm.
I use scandal very loosely, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
I the first thing I look at is okay, how much am I seeing this shit on my feed? If it's
Mm-hmm.
something that plasters my feed for like a week straight, maybe I'll look into it cuz I'm like, okay,
Mm-hmm.
this hasn't died and a week on the internet's a pretty fucking long time. So,
Yeah, if it's a whole week, yeah, that's yeah, that might be something there.
yeah, but like by now it's died. So, I have to kind of
Mm-hmm.
wonder now looking back at the smoke at the smoke of it all, was this really ever even something even worth getting upset about? I feel like we've had things happen in this industry within the last like 10 years that were way more worth the effort than some 16-man crew out in Canada who just so
Mm,
happened to consult on a couple of big titles that had things that made people angry. I'm sorry, but I don't think the developers of Spider-Man 2 would have gotten the flags correct if they didn't hire them. Like I don't see it. I'm
mm-hmm.
sorry. I think they
Yeah,
still would have fucked that part up.
and Suicide Squad would have been a terrible game either way.
Yeah, like you weren't fixing like even if we fix the disconnect of like Lex
Mm-hmm.
Luthor's journal entries about the
Yeah.
end of about different things in the DC universe,
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I don't think anybody's giving that game a pass. Like you
I
want
don't think so.
I've
No.
watched quite a few videos about it. Nobody's even mentioned these fucking journal entries from
Mm-hmm.
this is the first I've heard about it. The I didn't
Mm-hmm.
know Lex Luthor even had those in the game until now. Like
Yep.
that's how minuscule and pointless this
Mm-hmm.
shit is. Like why? Why is this even a thing people focused on? I'm pretty sure
Yeah.
Sweet Baby's involvement in this game is subprime minimal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. From what I've read, in terms of Suicide Squad, what they did was mainly some texts and NPC dialogue, so NPC blurbs, uh, what they'd shout during fights, stuff like that. Nothing really major. But this this is just, I don't know. This is partly probably it's people trying to find someone to blame for the terrible quality of some games.
I mean, it's
And
easy.
yeah.
It's easy. You
Hmm.
look at who made the game, and then
Yeah.
point to them. That's easy. This isn't.
Yeah.
I
Yeah, that's honestly kind of the more pertinent target that you should look at. Just like with what was it? Saints Row, the reboot. I've I've heard, listened to a video by Shortfit Otaku who did an interview with one of the ex-Volition people. And apparently, there were some pulling forces here and there in that development team, some that were very much on the progressive side, some weren't. And the more progressive ones were the loudest, and apparently the people higher up just said, "Fuck it, just take the path of least resistance and go with it." So that turned out the way it is. But
I don't see though. I'm gonna like partly
Mhm,
like part ways with the mindset here. I
mhm.
don't necessarily think that being progressive or conservative would have made a difference here. I don't I don't I
Probably not, yeah.
the game was bad. Like let's be real for a
The game
second.
had other problems, yes, the but one of the big things that annoyed people there was also the characters and the story itself. Well,
Yeah, but both
the
sides of the
character stuff.
table can write bad characters.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
like
Absolutely.
like
And you could even write good characters
like
either way.
either side could
Hmm.
have written a good game.
Absolutely.
The side that
Absolutely.
won wrote a bad game. I
Hmm.
don't see the value in this in the conversation of
Hmm.
taking of looking at someone's ideology and saying, "Well, that's why the game failed." No,
Hmm.
that's not why it fell apart.
Yeah.
They're bad writers. I don't care what your
Hmm.
ideology is. You're just a bad fucking writer. Go back,
Yeah.
go back to writing school for a couple of years and learn fucking
Hmm.
basics. Like this isn't
Yeah.
difficult.
The problem I think nowadays is that the cases where the things are progressive, the characters and the story, and it fails, the progressivism is what's well, either blamed or being hidden behind. Like for the criticism is they are trying to shield themselves from criticism by stating this is progressive, and the others just hate that, and not just sticking by, yeah, okay, we fucked up, this wasn't greatly made.
Yeah,
And the other
this was
side
badly
is
written.
and the other side probably also focuses a bit too much on it being progressive instead of this was badly made.
Yeah, like
But
I
that's
don't.
probably more because there are just a few high profile cases of this happening currently. There isn't really any highly conservative or right wing uh, type games that I can think of currently. Where
Yeah, but
that is really in the center of the game.
I would also argue, given what we know about this industry, that they probably have a
Mhm.
pretty good reason to not make that well known.
Well, yeah, definitely. No,
There's been
what I mean is not by the people being conservative or right wing, but the characters and the story being
oh right
displayed in that. The highest profile that I can just think of right at the moment would be Far Cry 5, with the whole Christian conservative cult that's as the bad guys.
yeah fair yeah
Which was
yeah
also, which, yeah, that caused the stink.
that
But the
caused
game turned out relatively good from what I've heard, but obviously in relatively good. It by no means perfect. It was just, well, it was a Far Cry game at the time.
yeah
Certainly could have been much better, but
Far
it wasn't
Cry's
terrible from what I've heard.
Far Cry's biggest problem is that Far Cry
Hmm.
hasn't changed in like
Yeah, it was the usual, more or less the
it's
usual Far Cry formula, just with
yeah
different story, different
it's
paint
the
job,
same
pretty much.
they've managed to make the
Hmm.
same game something like 6 fucking times, so it's like
Yeah.
you know you want to reach
Hmm.
like there's
Hmm.
iteration and then there's retread. I think we can
Yeah.
all kind of agree Far Cry has long since left the wheelhouse of iteration. There's a very distinct difference.
Hmm.
All right,
Yeah. They're
Final
at the stage of recolor, I think.
yeah, Final Fantasy 7, 8, 9. That was iteration upon upon
Hmm.
what you're doing. What Far
Yeah.
Cry has done is retread like the same general path over and over and over
Mm-hmm.
again. At this point, now we have
Yeah.
fucking potholes.
Mm-hmm. Hell, the Final Fantasy 13 trilogy had a whole lot damn more iteration and changes than probably the whole Far Cry series,
Yeah. Oh,
except for
easily.
maybe the first 2 or 3.
Yeah, easily.
Mm-hmm.
So I wasn't
Yeah, this.
expecting the Sweet Baby story to take up as
Mm-hmm.
much digital headspace as it did.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah.
I do actually want to talk about a couple of things. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to first talk about the Saber Interactive story. Saber Interactive has
Mm-hmm.
split off from Embracer Group, taking various studios with them.
Yep.
I'm going to be real with you. The
Mm-hmm.
giant 180-degree turn Embracer has had in the last handful of
Mm-hmm.
months has been almost whiplash inducing. I've all
Yeah.
if this
It's
was
been several months now. Yeah.
if this was an accident of some sort, I would probably be suing for injury because I would have very bad whiplash.
Yeah, you'd be over there, and your head will still be right under the hill or something.
Announced in a press release, Embracer Group in a 247 million USD deal will see Saber Interactive go their own way, taking the likes of Nimble Giant, 3D.
3D Realms.
I'm I'm
Yeah.
sorry, I haven't heard that name in,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's been
in
quite some time. Yeah.
yeah, quite. I'm sorry, I had whiplash. I hadn't
Mm-hmm.
heard 3D Realms since the fucking 90s. I'm sorry, my bad.
They've been
Slipgate,
around.
New World Interactive, Fractured Byte, Digsic, Saber Interactive, Sandbox Strategies, Madhead Games with them. Embracer will
Mm-hmm.
retain quite a few other studios, but even if they do, Embracer will continue to have the long-term license and publishing rights to all current and future PC and console games in the Metro license, the Metro franchise.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Which
On
would be
top
a
of the,
shame since 4A Games did great work with those.
Yeah. On top of that, Embracer said they will also continue to retain various projects listed below. The next AAA game from 4A Games, an unannounced concept phase AAA game, a previously unannounced AAA game based on a major license. Yeah, okay, so a bunch of shit. There's a lot of stuff.
Yep.
So I
Mm-hmm.
wanted to talk about this story because I also wanted to segue into
Mm-hmm.
something that's happened over the last few days. I found to be quite,
Mm-hmm.
I won't say interesting, because
Mm-hmm.
interesting would imply I gained some kind of academic knowledge from this. This wasn't academic. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
so a good friend of mine, Gamer's Thumb, had alert. I didn't know that Battlefront Classic was even a thing that was happening,
Ah.
and
Mm-hmm.
he made a YouTube short telling people, guys, lower your expectations. This isn't
Mm-hmm.
like a high. This is just going to be a straight port of the original games. I don't
Mm-hmm.
know why so many of you are gassing this up like it's about to be a full blown, like, polished off.
Mm-hmm.
I guess his circles were hype, like, gassing it up. Right, they were gassing up this
Mm-hmm.
release like it was
Okay.
going to be this
Mm-hmm.
big polished project, and he was like,
Mm-hmm.
you might want to take your feet off the gas there, boys. This is gonna be
Mm-hmm.
this is as for media. We're going to just get a pretty straight port of the games.
Yeah,
So
just essentially the old game just being
right,
runnable without as much effort as the
right.
originals by now.
So the games come
Mm-hmm.
out, and
Mm-hmm.
all right. So Luke Stevens did a video initially about it, but he was
Mm-hmm.
playing, but he was given access to the game before the multiplayer servers went up.
Mm-hmm.
Which this kind of illustrates the problem when you do
Mm-hmm.
this. He got access to the game before the servers went live. So he was
Mm-hmm.
playing single player. So in that
Mm-hmm.
video, I mean, obviously he denotes that it's single player, but he's incredibly
Mhm.
positive about the game.
Mhm.
Fair. I mean, you have a good experience. You have a good experience. Be honest, that's great. But
Mhm.
oh boy, what followed once the servers went live, I can only
Mhm.
describe as a shit show.
Mhm.
Now I had a hard time tracking this down, but from the
Mhm.
way it seems, it looks like within the first day to 2 days after it launched, the
Mhm.
game only had 3 servers that you could play
Yeah, the
on.
first one apparently only had 3. The second one had around 9 servers or something like that.
Yeah, first game only had like
Yeah.
3 servers, and so
Mhm.
that's 100 and like, oh, I think it's close to like 200 people, something like 200
Yeah,
people.
something like
Fl-
that, 192 or something
And
like
I
that.
think
Mhm.
the player numbers for that first game, that first day, were somewhere in a
Mhm.
ballpark of like a few thousand, if not more, trying
Mhm.
to play that game.
Yeah.
So, you know,
Mhm.
that's
Yeah.
a problem.
Kind of underestimated it. Mhm.
That's actually, and here's the crazy thing, like, I don't know how you, because like, I understand like
Mhm.
underestimating a popularity. Like that's fine. That happens. Fuck.
Mhm.
Final Fantasy fucking Square Enix did that shit with Final Fantasy 14. It happens. I can respect maybe not getting your numbers right.
Mhm.
It does happen. You can't predict trends, you can't predict popularity. Fine.
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
fine. There's no magic ball you can look into. But I will say this much.
Mhm.
200 people is a very, very low bar to set for yourself. I don't know. I just
Kind of
find that
seems like that. Yeah.
I
Mhm.
I just feel like you could have a reasonable expectation for yourself, but 200 people seems like
Honestly, when your expectations are that low, it kind of becomes the question of why did you port this in the first place? Because you couldn't have figured this would be profitable.
yeah, oh my god, you're right. Yeah. Yeah, like 200 people, like you wasn't you
Kind of a
you
disconnect there.
you really didn't think this was gonna work. Y'all was putting minimal effort. It was like, look, this shit's not
I
gonna
mean,
sell.
it's either they really didn't think that it was profitable and they just put the minimal effort in, or there's a disconnect there. They thought it would be profitable, but they didn't put in the effort to have enough servers there for whatever reason. There must have been some disconnect because those two things don't work together.
Yeah,
Because
that
no matter how little effort you put in there, if it's a game where you expect 200 people at most to be playing on release, that's not going to be profitable no matter what you do or how little
yeah.
you do. Because you
Let's
have to put in some effort, and that costs.
like okay, so that was just for the first game. So,
Mm-hmm.
okay, I'm not trying to
Yeah.
give them credit where credit isn't
Mm-hmm.
due, but let's
Mm-hmm.
let's put ourselves in like an imaginary fun land where Suicide Squad was great, and
Mm-hmm.
they just assumed that nobody would want to play the first game and everybody would want to play the second game, so they only did minimal amount of servers for the first game, assuming everybody would just jump to the second game to play that one
Mm-hmm.
instead and not play the original game.
Mm-hmm.
Remember, Funland Suicide Squad was a good game.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Stretching the limits here, but go on.
No, that's it.
Mm.
That's the pitch.
Mm,
That,
okay.
that's the
How many
pitch.
servers did they put up? 9 for the second game?
Yes, but considerably
Mm,
more than the first game.
it's not that difficult to get 300% of the other value if the other value is that freaking low.
Uh, again, Funland, Suicide Squad,
Mm-hmm.
quadruple A game. Uh, I don't
Mm-hmm.
feel like this is. I don't feel like this is working even in that Funland mystical thinking. Fair, fair,
No.
fair enough. Figured I'd try. I like to give people
It was a
the.
valiant effort, even though
I
no.
like to. I like to give people a reasonable the benefit of the doubt. Like I don't.
Mm-hmm.
I don't make it my business to give everybody the benefit of the doubt, but sometimes.
Yeah.
I'm a
I
decent.
don't know who exactly thought that would make sense to have this few servers, but hmm.
So, in other news, Capcom,
Mm-hmm.
and I am going to say Capcom is out here
Mm-hmm.
still motherfucking slaying it right now. They're still out here slaying it on a title that they've already moved on for. Monster Hunter World shipments and digital sales top 25 million. Now, to remind you all, Monster Hunter World is not current. That was the
Nope.
last Monster Hunter game. Rise is currently current, and they've already stopped
Mm-hmm.
producing new content
Yeah.
for Rise.
The
So,
expansion for World came out in 2020.
so the fact that this game is still, I see so many videos for World right now coming out. People went back
Mm-hmm.
to play World. They're still going back and
Yeah.
playing World now. Like that's still a pretty.
I think around at the time where they announced not Rise, Wilds, I think at around that time or a bit after that, World got pretty much a resurgence in players.
Yeah.
I think it
So
was around that time.
that sounds about right. That
Mm-hmm.
that sounds about right. But yeah, man.
Yeah,
25 million. Capcom, look at
that's
you
quite nice.
fucking slaying the shit. God damn. And
Mm-hmm.
remember, we only
Yeah,
just
and
recently covered the story about Capcom paying younger members
playing
of
the
staff, new
yeah.
younger members of staff more. So,
Mm-hmm.
good on you, Capcom. Sometimes karma pays off.
Mm-hmm. Though I don't think that one or the other have a direct connection, but it's nice to see anyway.
I like
And this
I
whole
like good
series,
news.
as of yeah, end of last year, the whole series exceeded 97 million units.
It's crazy. I think it's crazy that Monster Hunter itself
Mm-hmm.
has been so successful in the last like 5 to 10 years. Little background. I didn't
Mm-hmm.
officially like start to play any Monster Hunter till I think Monster Hunter Ultimate 4 for 3DS. That's when I started.
Mm-hmm.
That's when I personally had like discovered Monster Hunter. But Monster Hunter World, to I guess everybody's surprise, drew in like the masses. People found Monster Hunter, and that's really what did it. But God, it's so good to see
Mm-hmm.
Monster Hunter succeed in that regard, man. So fucking good.
Yeah.
So proud. So good to see. So good to see a franchise like Monster Hunter get the recognition that it should have gotten from the beginning.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, when you look at the numbers for the series, before World, apparently the most was Monster Hunter X or Generations, which
Yeah.
reached around 4.3, 4.6, depending on the version.
Oh wow.
And Monster Hunter 4 reached around 4 million. Although there was one other standout here with Freedom 3, the portable one for PSP, which almost reached 5 million. But then came World, which reached around 22.5 million at the time. Oh,
Yeah.
this I think this one is somewhat older in terms of that, in terms of the numbers. Because at this time, yeah, this is that. And Rise has probably also decent numbers with around 12 million, something like that. That one is also quite selling quite well.
Yeah, like let's not. I don't want to. I don't want to present this information to say that like Rise failed by any stretch of the
Oh
imagination.
no, definitely
Right,
not.
yeah, World selling 25 million is amazing. Rise still
Mm-hmm.
selling 12 is nothing to
At
scoff
least.
at. Please don't
Probably more, especially counting the expansion.
Please don't interpret the way we present these numbers to somehow imply that one was a failure and one wasn't. I would the only people who would look at 12 million as a failure is Square Enix.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, like they're the only developer that would look at 12 million in sales and say it fell below expectation. And I think that we could all agree that at that point you were not only huffing your own farts, you were also smoking something incredibly good, and I'd like some. If you could just give me some of that.
I think a significant reason why Rise sold less is probably
it was
that
Switch
it was
exclusive.
Exclusively for the Switch for over half a year. Then another year additionally on PC, and only then came out on the other consoles in January of last year.
Its staggered launch didn't help it. It didn't help it at all. Yeah. Still a fantastic game, no doubt, but it being on Switch by itself, which is crazy to think the Switch held it back as many Switch consoles are in the wild. I'm sorry, like I'm gonna be real. Like the Switch has sold a lot of consoles, so I don't inherently always buy into the idea that being on Switch by itself is like an inherent hindrance. Like if this was like the Wii U, fine, that's a fair argument. The Switch, no, we're not. That's not what this is.
No, definitely not. And I'm not even saying that Rise would have sold more than World if it released on all systems simultaneously, but it might have done a bit better.
Yeah, it potentially could have done better. I'll see to that.
Yeah.
All right. So last story before we wrap up the show. Payday 3. This was a debacle we never covered on the show, but it was a fucking...
Wait, that game exists?
Yeah. This was
I think that's probably the reaction from a lot of people.
Yeah, this was a debacle of a fucking video game. Now, my understanding of the debacle was more from the perspective of, more from the side of, I kind of experienced this from the perspective that there were a lot of YouTube influencers who had early access to the game. Hype the game up in their early access coverage. The game comes out, the game is like low-key trash, right? Has a bunch of issues, and the majority of these influencers never really addressed some of these things. They kind of just, a lot of them just said,
so they took the money and ran.
Well, a lot of them were like, well, it worked when I played it, so what do you want from me? Yeah, maybe, but that you still presented the game. People bought the game based off of your video. Like, whether or not you feel even remotely responsible, it was bought based off of your video. You are partly responsible for this. So that's where I know of this, was a lot of the creators. Now, to be fair, a few of the creators did kind of own this, and either amended the videos like description or put a pinned comment, because a lot of these were sponsored videos, so they can't technically take it down. They can't. A lot of them, I don't think they could
probably edit it, like add something to the beginning of the video.
Taking it down wasn't on the table for any of them, but a lot of them could do something to at least, be like, okay, yeah, I was unaware of the issues the game had when it was going to launch. If I had known that, my opinion of this would have been drastically different.
Although, actually, I'm not even sure how that's usually handled with taking down sponsored videos. How that's handled in the contracts and all. That's an interesting question.
Yeah, I'd wanna know now. I feel like I would have at least I feel like you'd have at least reasonable grounds to be like, well, the video I was sponsored to create gave a false impression of the game. the game is now getting lambasted and people are thinking that
Mm-hmm.
I knew the entire time. That's hurting my fucking image. This is a goddamn.
Mm-hmm.
But like it's also like a damned if you do, damned if you don't. Because if you take the video down, right,
Mm-hmm.
everyone just assumes that you knew all along and you're trying to hide the fucking evidence. So
Yeah. True.
it's like you lose no matter what the fuck you do. You take it down,
Mm-hmm.
you look guilty, you leave it up, you look like you're just in it for the money. You don't, there is no
Mm-hmm.
way to win. So,
Yeah.
that aside,
Mm-hmm.
Payday 3 did not do well. It didn't do
Mm-hmm.
well for a variety of reasons, but it also just
Mm-hmm.
didn't do well because the launch of the game was absolutely terrible and drove a
Mm-hmm.
lot of people away from playing it. And its performance was also just incredibly bad. So bad to the point that the CEO has announced that he'll be stepping down from the company.
Mm-hmm. That's quite significant.
Yeah, that's not
Yeah.
a
The article shows a good comparison. At the time of writing, Payday 3's 24-hour peak, according to SteamDB, was 378 players. While at the same time, Payday 2's count was 31,866.
yeah. I think that kind of makes
Oof.
that kind of makes the point for me.
When you're having Suicide Squad numbers, that's bad.
Yeah, that's not a great look. So yeah, him stepping, like yeah, I mean somebody has to take the fall on that one.
Though funnily, currently, even Suicide Squad is doing better.
Oh,
They have at
that's
least 800 players now.
800 people have not asked for their money back. Damn.
I mean, we don't know how many have or haven't, but yeah, those are the people currently willingly playing the game at this moment. And when that game does a bit more than twice your numbers,
Maybe there's a problem there. So yeah,
mm-hmm.
I don't know if this is an accountability thing or if he just got forced out of his post due to the terrible performance. Maybe a change up in management and a change up from the top might actually do them some good for their next release, so that you don't
Probably.
have another botched release. Because Payday 3 was not it. It was not. It was not it. Not it at all. So I wish you the best, because that's unfortunate. And
Mm-hmm.
guess what, CD? That puts us in
Mm-hmm.
at an hour and 12. I can't believe we actually fucking did it today. Holy
Mm.
shit.
Woohoo.
Holy shit. We got everything in an holy shit.
Yeah.
I
Yeah, and we
I
finally have that topic out of the way, and we hopefully don't have to return to that anytime soon.
yeah, editorially I have no intention on going back unless something genuinely
Yeah,
forces me
unless
back
something
to the
major happens.
yeah, unless something genuinely fucking drags me back to the fucking table. But I'm not covering it again. I refuse.
Mm-hmm.
I try every year to like make adjustments, and one of the primary adjustments I made was I cover it once and I don't come back
Mm-hmm.
to it unless something genuinely big happens, and that's it. Which means if I'm covering it the one time, I better make sure I'm getting a pretty fucking full picture, because I'm not going back. I'm not doing incremental coverage anymore. That's fucking stupid. I'm not doing that.
Mm-hmm.
I
Yeah,
refuse. Um,
absolutely.
so yeah, everybody. I hope you've all enjoyed the show. Thank you, CD, for your I torturous effort in having to look into Sweet Baby. I don't know how to pat you on the back for that appropriately, CD. I'm afraid I don't know how to appropriately do that. Your torturous effort in understanding the Sweet Baby story, because I don't know if many people would want to do that.
Thankfully I'm not American, otherwise my brain cells might try to sue me.
Ooh. We are the home of the lawsuit. That's what we are very good at lawsuits. That's kind of
Mm-hmm.
our it's like
That's one of your specialties.
yeah, being unhealthy in lawsuits, it tends to be our big sellers. As always,
Mm.
everybody, you can find us on a variety of podcasting platforms such as Apple, Google, and Spotify, and on our YouTube channel and on our YouTube channel at Turn-Based Cynics.
Caught yourself there,
Ooh,
just
I
just
almost
in the nick of
I
time.
almost committed. I almost committed. Ooh.
Yeah.
Almost caught me in a commitment. Ooh, I dodged that shit like a red pill podcast. I was like, you ain't gonna catch me committing.
Can't imagine who you're referencing there.
Oh, pick one. Pick one. I don't even care. Dodge that
Mhm.
shit like a red pill podcast. You didn't catch me committing to shit. Not in your goddamn life. You can find our video show there at some point in time. And I hope you all have a fantastic week playing all these great video games. And
Yes.
not playing bad video games. Don't play bad video games. Bad video games make me upset, and they make me maybe not angry. I don't like that's the crazy thing, man.
Disappointed.
I don't think like video games have like made me like angry. Like I see so many stories about people getting mad at a video game and breaking a controller. And maybe
Yeah. Nah.
maybe I'm
I
just
mean, you can be
like
frustrated if you're playing the game and all, but that's always just temporary.
yeah, it's like maybe I'm old, which is
Bad
possible.
releases are mainly disappointing.
Yeah, like a bad release just has me just go, well, I spent money on that.
Mm-hmm.
Thankfully I tend to dodge the majority of those
Mm-hmm.
somehow.
Yeah. Let's hope the next big one in 4 days releases in a better state than its predecessor.
What's the next 4 days?
As Forbidden West comes out on PC.
Oh,
Horizon Forbidden West. Mm-hmm.
okay. I was thinking Dragon's Dogma 2. That's the next thing I'm looking at. But I don't think that comes out till like much later in the month. I think that comes out towards the end of the month.
I think that's April. I think.
Is it April? Is it April? Maybe it is April. My bad.
No, 22nd. Yeah, okay. That's in 4 days. Or okay, yeah. So that's almost the same. Approximately. That's just a day after.
That's what that's what I'm gunning at the moment as far as the next thing I pick up for myself to play.
Mm-hmm.
But I have too many things to play anyways, so I'm never gonna get through all this. This is basically a wasted effort at this point, which is depressing.
It's gonna be
the least.
so many created characters going through that game. So many of them.
You don't give people access to a character creator early.
Yes, you do.
That is something you only do if you already know you're gonna get some fucking abominations.
Hell yeah.
So they clearly already knew.
Absolutely.
They already knew. So I want to just mention this before we end the show. This just popped up on a feed of mine. Let me see if I can pull up the entire thing, because it is tangential to what we've been talking about for the show, but I did not have a source for it. I've heard about it. So PC Gamer launched an article about 14 hours ago, so I missed it. The Star Wars Battlefront Classic Collection incorporated a modder's work after Asper promised it would not. This release has been a total mess. Uh,
That sounds great.
the balance has been restored to the force. The well likes so let me see here if I can find it. There's loads of these weird issues that are just screaming rush development they went on. Some textures in the game are even muddled with those like Battlefront 1, like Kashyyyk water is blue, like a battle like one not gray like 2. In the DLC, the DLC maps themselves use the completely wrong textures in a lot of places. Oh dear. It looks like they it looks like the launch version did indeed incorporate a mod that restored Asajj Ventress as a playable character.
Mm-hmm.
So they used the mod that restored a character that wasn't originally in the game. Now,
Mm-hmm.
I find this to be uh fucking disingenuous for a couple of reasons. One, I'd like to all remind you of a little game that we've talked about on this show that is Knights of the Old Republic 2, where they
Mm-hmm.
announced the game on its trailer saying it was going to have the restored content mod added to the game,
As DLC,
and
yeah.
then
Mm-hmm.
magically reneged on that and offered people a handful of handful of games as pittance for
Mm-hmm.
them not following through with it. So no, I would personally use this against them. I'd be like, so you couldn't incorporate the mod in this game, but you had no problem in stealing and incorporating a mod from another modder without telling them. And this
Mm-hmm.
one, get the fuck out of my face.
Yeah. I mean, them being able to is understandable since this is a much more simpler mod, but they should definitely have credited the source. Yeah.
Yeah, or just not put it in the game. Just don't do it. Just don't put the
I
mod.
mean, not unless you credit the guy. Yeah,
Yeah, like
definitely.
just don't. Like don't do that. Don't
Mm-hmm.
don't do that. That's wrong. And
Mm-hmm.
not to mention the fact it comes off really weird, like nobody was gonna notice. Like, I
Mm-hmm.
guess maybe they just assumed the masses would just never know that Asajj Ventress was never actually in the game originally. But like,
I mean, they even advertised stuff like new characters in the trailer for that game, so it's not like they
mm,
were sneaking it in.
yeah.
They
Well,
advertised having
I
new
guess
characters and new maps.
new, new
Well,
care.
in comparison to the original release, it was new.
I
It
mean,
wasn't
yeah,
in the original game, so
yeah.
it's new
You
if
know
you're
what?
having a base release.
That's fair. That's fair.
Hmm.
In any case, everybody, I that just popped up on my feed, and I just wanted to include that before I
Yeah,
wrap the show up because I'm a sucker for
what you did.
punishment. Until then, everybody, stay tuned, and we will see you all next time,
So yeah.
whether you like it or not. Hopefully, they do. I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe they do. Maybe they don't. I don't fucking know. I'm just